So you want to listen to their ideas. You want to be open to what they suggest when you say, this is what I want to accomplish. I want us to get here in 3 months. What are the best ideas? What are your biggest challenges and how can I help you? And then you want to step back and let them do their job.
Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Listen, if you are enjoying the show and getting good value, leave us a rating and review. We'd love to hear from you, but also take any feedback that can make the show work harder for your investing goals. And if you haven't done so already, or this is your first time listening, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. We've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Sandhya Seshadri. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to grow as a multifamily investor, you have to spend more time with other multifamily investors. And an easy way to do that is to join our apartment investing mastermind group today. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button. Now, as a part of this group, you'll get access to expert trainings, group coaching calls, industry news and updates, as well as all of our webinars and workshops, including our 3-hour workshop on raising capital. Again, if you want to be around other multifamily investors that can help you scale your portfolio today and grow your network, make sure you're a part of the Apartment Investing Mastermind. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the Mastermind button today. Sandhya was working in corporate America when she saw firsthand how people dedicate so much of themselves to work while simultaneously missing out on crucial opportunities to protect and grow their wealth. That's why she loves spreading knowledge about the power of passive investments in multifamily real estate. And you get to leverage her knowledge and experience in management, versatility, and metrics-focused investment decisions so you can do what it takes to take control of your financial future and build a legacy of your family. Let's welcome to the show, Sandhya Seshadri.
Thank you so much for having me, John. I just love that you have a podcast and a mentoring program, and I've, watched you grow over the last few years, and it's fantastic to finally be on your show.
Well, listen, it's been great to get to know you over the last few years as well and to bring you onto the show. I went over your bio at a very high level. Why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
So, like most Asian geeks, I had a strong math background, and I came here with 2 suitcases to go to college. And luckily, I had a scholarship, which is the only way I could have gone here. Got into corporate America as an electrical engineer, and my company was kind enough to pay for me to get a part-time MBA, which is where I started getting all my financial knowledge. I traded stock for a while, and then actually went full-time into trading stocks after I had children, and found my way to real estate as initially a way to defer taxes and dip my toes into real estate and see if that was something I wanted to get into. So I initially invested passively and then went on to becoming my own syndicator. I'm based in Dallas, which is a great market for multifamily. So all my deals, both active and passive, are mostly located in the Dallas area. I have a couple of passive investments in other states, but this has been a great market and a great run. And besides saving on taxes, I get to meet very amazing people like you. So it's a win-win.
I love it. I love it. You talked about, you coming to the country, coming to the US for college and for education, getting your engineering degree, doing that for a little bit, focusing on stocks, going full time into stocks before kind of transition into real estate. Let's talk about that, right? Because I think most Americans are, familiar and have some of their wealth or some of their portfolio in stocks, whether it be
Mhm.
401ks or maybe they're actively managing their stock portfolio. For you, you said you got into real estate primarily to offset some of the gains you were making in stocks. Talk to us more about that.
So in my case, the stock market was doing really well at the time that I was trading stocks, and I also had some knowledge. I was part of investor clubs, so I was making good money. But I didn't have this great idea to start my own small business or do something else that would save a little bit on taxes. And then when I stumbled upon large multifamily, what I realized was that I could be somewhat hands off because you can have a third party property management company running that and doing all the work for you. And any gains I made, passive gains, they can be offset through passive losses because we do what's called a cost segregation study with accelerated depreciation. So let's say you get a cash on cash return on a 100K investment of $6,000, but the depreciation could be as much as 70%. So you actually get a negative 70K in your K1 loss statement. So even that 6 or 7,000 you made that first year, you don't have to pay taxes on it. So it's a great way to defer taxes. And then once you become an active investor, which is what I became, which is actively managing assets, so that could apply even if you're managing your own single family rental portfolio. then you become what's called a qualified real estate professional designation by the IRS. And you definitely want to be talking to your accountant about your specific situation. But if you qualify for that, then you can offset even your active income with that, not just the passive income. And
Yeah.
that's what led me to saving a bundle on taxes. And that alone justified the time I spent in real estate.
Yeah, you just talked about a great strategy that I know you and I are familiar with, but for everyone else who maybe didn't catch that, you're talking about the ability to invest passively in these larger apartment deals, but actually get some great tax benefits. The example
Mm-hmm.
you gave was if you were to invest $100,000, which is a good round number. So let's say $100,000 into a deal. Let's say you were making a 6% annual return. So you made $6,000. In some of these deals, you're able to actually take a loss. So the example you gave was a 70% loss. So you're going to write or on your taxes, you're going to show that you actually lost $70,000 on this investment based on depreciation. So even though you made $6,000 and that $100,000 worth of equity is still there, on paper, you're going to show that you lost $70,000. So that's going to reduce your tax liability. Now, again, you need to talk to your tax professional. There's certainly some, asterisks and things like that involved, but you can understand why people get intrigued by this and look at real estate and particularly this commercial real estate avenue for their investment needs. I want to go back to where you were at that beginning, right? Because you were trading stocks at that time. Were you
Mm-hmm.
taking this strategy to use against your stock income or your stock gains, or was there something else that you were doing to kind of help offset that?
Yeah, I talked to my accountant and I asked him, how can I pay less in taxes by getting involved in real estate? And he told me that you have to become a qualified real estate professional, spend 70, 50 hours, as the IRS explains it, in doing active management of these assets and be able to show that by documenting it. So when I drive to my properties, when I have my asset management calls, I'm talking to vendors about CapEx projects, et cetera, all of that counts, which is the active side of real estate. Then I could offset that full 70K depreciation in the example we just talked about versus just the 6,000 of passive gains. So I could also offset active income by using all of that depreciation money if I qualified. So the year that I started in end of 2018, I didn't quite have enough hours logged, but from 2019, once I started having active deals, I qualified, and that's since then I've been able to offset a good percentage of not just my active income, but also some of my husband who works the W-2, his income, because we file our taxes jointly. And that's
So
been one of the better advantages of being in real.
you just gave a phenomenal insight for everyone. And here's, I mean, it's so golden. And again, sometimes your accountant or CPA may not understand this. So, talk to professionals who understand kind of the laws and what's allowed here. But you just talked about because you are a qualified real estate professional, not only are you able to take these passive losses against your income, you're
Mm-hmm.
actually able to take it against your husband's earned income as well through his W-2 job. So for a lot of people, if there's one person who is the primary earner, let's say you're a doctor or engineer and you're the one making all the money, and you have a spouse who maybe is stay-at-home mom or just, stay-at-home dad or whatever it is, it may not be a bad idea to have that person become a qualified real estate professional so you can qualify and actually reduce your tax liability based on the earned income from that higher net worth income earner. So again, we're not tax professionals, but these are some ideas that you can certainly take to your tax professionals to learn more about how real estate investing can help you hit your financial goals there. So great strategies there, great insights on what kind of got you going into this space. I know when you first started investing, you were on the passive side, and you've
Mm-hmm.
learned a lot of things over the years about how to vet
Mm-hmm.
operators and great questions to ask. Talk to me about some of the top questions you like to ask whenever you're evaluating an opportunity so you don't lose money in the deal.
The one of the biggest things I emphasize is that the jockey is almost as important as the horse. So focus on the operator. Just like before you hire a contractor to do a 50K remodel for your kitchen, get references. How have they performed in the past in a similar asset in a similar market? That tells me a lot about their ability to do this again for me. Because if I'm going to invest this kind of big money, and $50,000 to me is a lot of money, I really need a track record. So if they're a first timer, there's nothing wrong with being a first timer. You want to leverage the resume of those partners. So are they partnering with people? Do they have coaches, mentors, others helping them along as advisors to manage such a large property, right? You're talking 100-door property, $20 million. You're trusting 50K of your hard-earned money. So that's the first question I ask is what is their track record? Verified not by themselves, because you only see all the good stuff posted on social media. Who can verify that for me? Is there a passive investor I can use as a reference? If you told me you just doubled somebody's money in 2 years, who can verify that? Just like when you hire a contractor, you're going to ask your neighbor, your friend, who had the same kitchen remodel done by the contractor. You're not just going to believe the words of the contractor. It's the same concept. And it's just like another analogy I use is brain surgery. If I'm going to get a brain surgery done, I want to make sure the surgeon is, I'm not the first victim or I'm not the first patient for that surgeon. I want to make sure there's a very experienced surgeon also in the same room operating. Nothing wrong with being a first timer, but I want that experience. That's number one for me. And then the second thing about real estate is it's all about the location. You can't change the location. You can't suddenly change the 1 to 3 mile radius of your property to be this perfect, nice looking neighborhood. So you can paint it, you can make the property beautiful, but you can't move it unless it's a mobile home park or something. So you have got to pick the right location. Even the greatest of great operators can't really change the crime scene, can't change the demographics of that area in the short amount of time that they hold the deal. So in less than 5 years, there's only so much you can do. All the gentrification that's happening, the city is pumping all this money. That might be a 10-year plan. So I pick areas that have low crime. High median household income is very important. So if you are planning to charge a rent of $1,000 a month, think of that renter that's at least $12,000 a year, and they might be other expenses like utilities, etc. So you kind of want to make sure that household income is 3 to 4 times that, because as we know, costs are going up. We know the cost of eggs and other things have been really going up over the last several years. Taxes are up, insurance is up, etc. So you want to see if that household can really afford to pay the rent for your apartment. So one thing I look for in location is low crime, high median household income, signs of job growth, population growth, and diversity of jobs. You don't want it to be just, one Air Force base or oil and gas in the Midland, Odessa area, as an example. And when one industry goes down, then the entire population, income, economy of that area goes down. And you don't want to be dependent on that. So I love Dallas Fort Worth, of course, that's where I'm based. So that's a great market. It's got a huge diversity of jobs and, population migration from both ends of the country. New York to California, a lot of people still move to this area. So you want to keep, tabs on that. So if I had to pick my top 5 criteria, it would be the operator. What is their experience? The market, the location, a lot of digging into that location from crime, median household income, job growth, population growth, diversity of jobs. And then beyond that, you can actually analyze the metrics of the deal itself, and you want to understand the risk. So with any investment, right? Let's say I'm trying to invest 50K into a tech startup, right? That's a pretty high risk investment because it could go completely bust. So similarly, what are the risks? What are all some of the bad things that can go wrong? Is this property located like in a coastal town like Corpus Christi? Well, I'm going to worry about hurricane risk and insurance, right? So what are some property specific risks, operation specific risks, location risks, right? Like we have tornadoes and thunderstorms and roof damage and things like that in the Dallas area. What are some other risks with respect to that location? And so are they cash rich? In other words, if everyone is a newbie who doesn't have a lot of money saved, they're all in their 20s, and typically in our 20s, most of us don't have a lot of cash. And there's a problem, right? Let's say we had in Feb 2021 in Dallas, we had this deep freeze that lasted 8 days, and Dallas is not used to that. We had a bunch of pipes burst, and in some apartments that my friends own, 50 or 60 apartments, units within that complex had burst pipes. Well, by the time insurance pays you and you can get these units back online, it's going to be a while. So, do you have some cash to put into the deal? So, what are their reserves? And are these general partners also somewhat cash rich to be able to put in some money into the deals? Who's got the liquidity? Who's willing to put money before coming back to investors for a capital call? And I want to make sure of that. I don't want everybody to be too lean and then depending on the money from this apartment complex investment to be their paycheck to feed their family. So that's something I ask about. Values are very important. So talk to them about how they communicate, what kind of numbers they share with you, their transparency, and all of these things can come from references from other passive investors who work with them. So just like talking to your neighbor before you hire a contractor for your kitchen remodel, you want to ask about their experience. Are they easily available? Is the person you're speaking with the primary operator, as I call it, who's going to be with you when the deal closes, meaning the property is acquired till it's finally sold over the entire hold period of 5 years? Or are you talking to the person who's primarily raising capital and it's sort of gone with the wind when the deal closes? And so they don't really know what's happening with the operations. And that's okay. But you want to be introduced to the asset managers, the operators who are going to be available and know what's actually happening with the property after it closes. That's very important to me. It's to know the team that's going to operate this deal once it's acquired until it's sold and I get all my money back as a passive investor.
Yeah, great tips there. You talked about five things here. One, I'm just going through my notes. You talked about, first of all, that jockey, who's the operator, critical. Yes, we want to pay attention to the deal, but who's the operator? What experience do they have? What's their track record? Check those references. That's going to be one of the first things you're trying to figure out when deciding whether or not to invest with a particular operator. The second thing is understand the location. What's the story of that location? Is it growing? Is it diverse? I love your point about looking for areas that have low crime and a high median income. You define that by 3 to 4 times whatever those future rents are going to be. You want to make sure the median income is above that, because that's going to be the criteria that you use to qualify potential renters. So you want to make sure that
Mhm.
there's enough of those people in that area who can afford to pay that rent. So that's a great one there. And you talk about the metrics of the deal, actually looking at the underwriting. Are they being conservative? What are the risks involved in the deals? If it's in the coastal markets, are you thinking about hurricane or any kind of damage from natural disasters? What are the other risks based on the business plan of the deal? And then you talk next about, the capital, right? So what kind of reserves are in place? What kind of liquidity, do the operators have? Is there enough money in the deal and on the sidelines from those operators where that if something comes up, there's enough cash to take care of that, where you don't have to come back to those limited partners and ask them for a cash call? And then that last point was really about the values and communication. Are they going to be available? Are they going to be accessible? Are they going to share information with you? What's their role? Are they going to be there throughout the deal? Or, are they not really going to know what's going on or not really sharing updates? So 5 things that you can pay attention to make sure you are finding the right operators and the right deals for you to invest in. Now, I know you like to focus on the asset management side, right? We talked a lot about starting out and being passive. You've kind of transitioned to the operator yourself. You've got a number of deals, and there's a lot of things that you run into as an operator being on the asset management side that you don't really get to see, or you're not really as privy to as a limited partner. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
A lot of things can go perfectly on paper. And then when reality bites, it's just like, the marriage. People spend all this time planning the wedding and the honeymoon, but very little is talked about what happens afterwards. Then it's just like having a baby. You dream about it and the baby's so perfect, etc. But the reality, those first few weeks really bites. So in asset management, for example, you have about four bosses you report to. The first one is really your lender. The lender is funding 70% of your deal. So whatever they say, you do. You don't question it. And day one, you might have this lovely list of lender required repairs. And that could be a parking lot repair, which could cost you $200,000. So that's why when people go day one and say, I'm going to start painting this property, I'm going to start doing my interiors, and I'm going to do everything bam, bam within 30 days, I'm like, did you even look at your list of repairs from the lender? So that's your number one boss. The second boss you report to is the city inspector and code compliance department. They will have a list for you because you need that certificate of occupancy to operate your apartment. So when they do the inspection and they give you a list and they say, well, you've got to replace this, you've got to fix these stairs, you've got to put a fire extinguisher in every unit, etc., and they give you a laundry list of items that you've got to fix. Well, guess what? That could add up really fast as well. So that's the second boss you report to. The third really boss is your customer. That's your residents of the property. Are you taking care of them? Are you processing work orders on time? And what kind of issues are they having? What did you inherit? Because as much as you like to do a thorough due diligence, the reality could be much different. And some of the residents are really good residents and you want to retain them. but they may be leaving just because there are some bad residents around you. So you got to go do a good job of screening the existing residents, make sure you issue the lease violations as needed, and get the bad ones out so that you can retain the really good ones and process those work orders in a timely manner. Some of those repairs can be very costly depending on what you inherited. For example, the last deal that I acquired was from the syndicator who had 4 foreclosures this year in Houston. So you could tell that the property had been sort of neglected for a while. And so we discovered a lot more problems the more we operate, and tenants start complaining that, oh, this apartment has always been leaking and things like that. So you want to make sure you budget for that depending on the age of the property. But also, newer properties that were affected by things like the freeze and the burst pipes, etc., will all have these issues that may not have been fully resolved. They may have done band-aid fixes, and now you're going to have those problems. The fourth boss or customer you have is your investor. So how do you keep your investors happy? That's by delivering on the performance. So if you had initial projections of so much in all your numbers, whether that's revenue, net operating income, etc., you've got to meet or beat those numbers in a short amount of time to be able to make those distributions on time. And that's how you get, investors coming back. So sometimes that may mean you have to hold on to your capital and not start doing all of your big capital projects right away. So you have enough left for this. But in one of my deals, for example, we had a storm in Dallas a few months ago, and we had, the roof damage on a bunch of apartments. That's going to cost me quite a bit of money. Yes, the adjuster is going to come, but depending on your deductible, a lot of times our deductible is like 50K. And so the damage itself might only be about 50K. So it's like, do I even want to file insurance and then have a higher insurance claim in the, higher insurance rate for next year? So you've got to make those kind of decisions. You've got to be on site as much as you can. I know a lot of people like to do remote management and have their property management take photos, but at the same time, a lot can go wrong when that happens. We discovered that vacant units, for example, could be leased by the property manager as an Airbnb style, and you never know about it. So you've got to go frequently walk your vacant units, right? Or they'll be making a couple of $100 on the side. I mean, imagine tens of millions of dollars of investor money kind of dependent on an on-site staff that's paid an average of 50K. So you've got to have your checks and balances in place, even if you're vertically integrated. Like, how do you make sure these vacant units aren't getting rented by, property managers just in an Airbnb fashion to random people or even homeless people to get the occupancy numbers up. So there's just a lot more to it than what meets the eye in asset management.
What's your kind of your number one, I guess, surprise about asset management that you weren't really expecting when you were on the passive side of the business?
I did not realize the fact that these are paid employees getting 50, 60K in wages, and I'm counting on them to manage millions of dollars of other people's money.
You're talking the
And
property manager.
yes, your
Yeah.
on-site staff, your maintenance guys maybe 60K, 70K, right? And you are counting on all of them to do a perfectly good job while tens of millions of investors' money is at stake. And it's like, okay, how are you going to incentivize them? Are they motivated? Do they see your vision? Or do you always deal with maybe a supervisor in that property management company and you don't have that contact with the staff? You don't really know what's happening as a local boots on the ground. To me,
Yeah.
that struck me because every time I visited my properties, and I used to do it at least once a week back during COVID and stuff when my partners were out of state and they couldn't visit, and I would uncover more and more things each time I visited. Like, I don't want to talk about all that during the call. So your on-site sometimes is hesitant to talk about all the actual problems during a call, which, you have a half a dozen people and all of their supervisors. So versus you discover the problem if you're already there on site. So I feel like that was my biggest surprise.
I think it's really good information and insightful, and it leads me to a clarification. Some people don't really know the difference between asset management and property management. Explain the
Mhm.
difference in your eyes.
Asset management is really about managing risk. So you are there to anticipate and mitigate all the possible risks that can happen with the property. Versus property management takes care of the day-to-day hassle or the day-to-day work. So new leases, renewals, work orders, all of that is done by our on-site staff. Versus as an asset manager, you're at a higher level. You're so almost at the helicopter level. You can land when needed, but you're really having that oversight of everything. So you're balancing your four boss, doing what the lender wants, doing what the inspectors want, managing residents by working on retention and incentivizing your staff to stay motivated on what your business plan is, right? Because your vision for this property could be very different from what they have seen at a different property, etc. You need to make sure they are all on board with your game plan for this property, but at the same time, you don't want to be micromanaging them. So the surprises help me. I get secret shopping done as an example of a way to do that checks and balances. Sometimes it's in person, sometimes it's phone calls, sometimes it's to see how quickly they respond with inquiries made on online, etc. But you've got to have a way to trust but verify what they do as an asset manager, but still, sometimes it's assembly lines in the corporate world as well. The best people to come up with the solutions are the people who are actually there with their eyes and ears to the ground. So you want to listen to their ideas. You want to be open to what they suggest when you say, this is what I want to accomplish. I want us to get here in 3 months. What are the best ideas? What are your biggest challenges and how can I help you? And then you want to step back and let them do their job. So it's all of
I
that as
love
an
it.
asset manager. It's a lot of the project management work I used to do in corporate for risk mitigation, while the designers, the test engineers, etc., they did the work that they did. But I was here to make sure everyone talked to everyone and we were all marching through the same tune.
Yeah, I think you're spot on when you talk about the risk assessment and even from a financial standpoint, I think about it as like you're the CEO as the asset manager.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, you're accountable for everything, risk,
Yep.
profitability, everything, right? So you're the
Yep.
CEO and they're more of that operations. I would say directors. They're not even a
Mm-hmm.
CEO, they're the operations director. So they're going to be focused on the daily, day-to-day things and the simplest solutions, but they may not necessarily be the most fiscal solution that's there. So you kind of have to work with them, and it's a balancing act of empowering them to make the decisions and find the right solutions, but also making sure that you're doing everything to assess all risk while still driving profit. So really good assessment there. And again, you can learn more about asset management, property management. You've got a couple things going on, right? So first of all, if anybody wants to learn more about you, your company, working with you, Engineered Capital is your company. You can go to engineered-capital.com to learn more. But then you also were a recent co-author of a book, right? So Next Level Your Life. Talk to me a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more about that.
So next level your life is like a bunch of short stories all in one book. I'm one of the authors there, and each of us talk about the struggles we've overcome and how we were able to level up from where we were. And so me as a starving student sitting in India dreaming of a life here, and my parents made $60 a month in income, and I'm coming here to a college that's 10,000 a year. And how did I level up? How did I find that out of the box way? Because no matter how hard my parents tried, if every month they saved their income, it wasn't going to be enough. So it's like, what do you have to do to make that step function kind of change, that exponential increase in your life to really level up? And so there's a lot of inspiring stories there. Simon Bailey, Robert Helms, from the real estate radio show, etc., have all written a chapter of how they did that in different phases of their life. So I would highly recommend it for anyone interested in thinking out of the box, taking a step back and saying, if I want to get here, like my first starting salary as an engineer was $36,000. One day I wanted to be a millionaire. That was going to be a very long time to get there without multiplying that money in an exponential way. So just ideas from a lot of different inspiring people in that book.
But we'll make sure we put a link to that in the show notes. You can check that out and check out a copy of that book. Right now, we're going to move to our round of insights. Are you ready?
Sure.
Give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
I think raising capital from investors, I just assumed that all my friends and family would be so excited about me getting into real estate that they would all invest. And surprisingly, the money came from the most unexpected places. It was from people who had the knowledge of investing outside the stock market. And unfortunately, my little engineering world and my family, everyone had only done the blind stock market investments into mutual funds. So they couldn't comprehend putting 50K into an apartment complex. So that was a surprise. And that made me realize, oh, I need to expand my network. And there's people out there who need help and who've got the net worth who can do these investments.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
Good old Calendly to block time, not just for your appointments like with your clients, but even just your breaks. So make sure you have enough breaks scheduled in there so that all you can do is get out of your desk and maybe do a 10-minute quick workout, or even a walk outdoors and come back, or a sip of coffee, whatever it is that you need. So plan breaks into your calendar.
All right. Besides the book that we just talked about, give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Atomic Habits by James Clear. One of my favorite books.
I'm a big Atomic Habits fan myself, so I love that one. Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
Time block and putting away my phone. I'm pretty addicted to my phone, so I leave my phone in a different room when I'm going to do my deep work for an hour or two. I have to have it in a different room, otherwise I'm going to be distracted. So in this highly distracted world, focus. What do you have to do to focus? Very important.
Give me your number one insight for asset management.
Make sure your property management company and the on-site personnel are bought into your business plan and believe in your vision. And don't forget to take care of residents by doing community activity. Bringing them all in so you hear the good, bad, and the ugly with your apartment complex so you can fix the problem.
I love it. Well, let's lighten the mood. You are in Dallas, and there's certainly some good options for food there. Give me your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
So Dallas is all about Tex-Mex. So one of my favorites is Uncle Julio's if you're into Tex-Mex. And we like our neighborhood bar as well, and it's Dos Arroyos in Richardson, Texas.
All right, two great options there. Listen, Sandhya, you gave us a lot of great information talking about how you started off, from engineering and, transition into stocks, then use that to transition into real estate, and not just real estate, but starting on the LP side, being passive, then moving over to the GP side, being active and running your own deals, and talk to us about, the lessons learned there, how you vet opportunities, but also what it takes to be an asset manager, and recognizing that we all want, financial freedom and independence and, be our own boss. But when you go and you're running these deals on the active side, you're going to have other bosses, right? You got the four bosses you mentioned, you got your lender, the inspectors, residents, and then your investors that you've got to answer to. So just recognizing that and approaching it with that mentality is really insightful for us. Again, if anybody wants to learn more about you and some of the work that you're doing, they can go to your website, engineered-capital.com. We'll make sure you put a link to that in our show notes. Sandhya, thank you again for being a great guest and coming on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much, John. It's been an honor. Appreciate you.